Welcome back, Wolfpack. Verlis here, and this is how to use Kommo-o. So it's actually really interesting when we break down into the dragon fighting typing. It's something that I wanted to see in my possible Pokemon types for Sun and Moon video. You see it's right there in the thumbnail. So it's actually pretty cool that the dragon fighting typing is now real. So let's go and check out the implications of this, because I thought it was just more of a cool thing to have a dragon that punched things. But we look at it defensively, really interesting. We get a surprising amount of resistances, but we also have a ton of weaknesses. Flying and Psychic, well, we're going to be picking that up off of the fighting typing. Then Ice, Dragon, and Fairy weakness with a 4 times weakness to Fairy. So Fairy type Pokemon are going to be very challenging for us to deal with. And then we do pick up some really useful resistances: Rock, Bug, Fire, Water, Grass, Electric, and Dark. So kind of balanced, but really susceptible to a lot of super effective hits. Looking at the typing offensively, Fighting gives us good coverage. Dragon doesn't really do that, but Fighting at least covers for the steel resistance with the Dragon. However, Fairy types will absolutely slaughter us. So it's a 4 times super effective hit against us, and we can't even do neutral damage with our primary stab. So then we only have Dragon to hit Ghost type for neutral as well. Things to consider with the Kommo-o. And then we get to the stats. So pseudo-legendary Pokemon. There is a lot that could go wrong in a really busted OP way, and there's a lot that could go wrong with just trying to make the Pokemon balanced. So right here, I feel we get into the big problems with Kommo-o, that its identity. What is its identity? That it has 75 on the hit points, 85 on the speed. So it's not going to be like a crazy fast, just get out there and sweep kind of Pokemon. And then it has decent defenses and stuff. With all of our weaknesses, we're going to eat some super effective hits, and then it's not even going to matter. Then 110 on the attack, which isn't fantastic, and then 100 on the special attack. So our damage isn't really there, and we're kind of split between this mixed setup, and maybe we can make it work. So let's go really explore what Kommo-o is going to do by hopping on over to Serebii, and we can see the abilities for Kommo-o. Bulletproof? That's an amazing ability. I'm glad to see more Pokemon finally picking up that Bulletproof. Soundproof is really good, and even the Overcoat does have an argument for being pretty solid because of its effectiveness against weather and powder moves. So let's go and check this out, because Bulletproof, yeah, all of those moves, not resisted, completely immune. Protects Pokemon from ball and bomb moves. So Acid Spray, Aura Sphere, Barrage, all these things, all of this right here, those are now immune. That's crazy, which is why it's like thinking Bulletproof for any Pokemon would be really cool to have, but we still have a lot of weaknesses, and we still have to worry about like Fairy type moves and Dragon type moves and stuff like that. And when you break it down, not all of these are super common. Like Ice Ball, that's cool for our Dragon typing, but nothing uses Ice Ball. Focus Blast, maybe. Energy Ball. Then we get into other things like the Seed Bomb, Shadow Ball, Sludge Bomb. So there's a mix here that we see very commonly used moves, and then ones that aren't used as much. But we also need to go and check out the Soundproof ability, because Soundproof, even though it's mostly status and pretty much all special moves, some of these are also really good. Hyper Voice. That Pixelate Hyper Voice is going to be one of the biggest threats to us, so it'd be really nice to have that. Also, if we're going up against a Primarina and the Primarina has Liquid Voice when Liquid Voice becomes available, that could be pretty bad for shutting down things as well. Bug Buzz, even though we do resist it, you know, it's something we might see. The Boom Burst, Clanging Scales from an opposing Kommo-o. So it's just kind of like this weird stuff. Sparkling Aria, Snarl. If we're running Snarl, I guess that could be big because we don't want to get our special attack reduced. So just like with the Bulletproof, there's sometimes where this actually works really well, and there's other times when it doesn't. But just take note that there are a surprising amount of sound moves and a surprising amount of like ball and bomb moves as well for the Bulletproof. And then even considering like Spore moves that, you know, actual Spore, that if we don't want to go to sleep, that works. Ignores Rage Powder as well. So Spore, Rage Powder kind of being like the biggest ones, but every once in a while you'll see a Stun Spore, maybe even a Sleep Powder from something like the Venusaur. So don't even count out Overcoat, that if we're in like a weather heavy meta at some point, maybe using that to kind of ignore a little bit of extra damage from the hail, from the sandstorm, could be good on the Kommo-o. So the ability is a lot to talk about. Like, yeah, that's some strength right there, putting Bulletproof onto Pokemon. Also, it does get the Dragon Dance, so we do have to take that into consideration when it comes to balancing this Pokemon, because Dragon Dance with really powerful abilities means you can't give it insane stats, or else we have a completely unstoppable Pokemon. So we're going to see what we can build up to when it comes to the Kommo-o. But in that, coverage lacking. That we get Clanging Scales, that's a special move, but Dragon Dance works for physical moves. So how are we going to make that work? Physically, we get Sky Uppercut. That's our fighting move right there. Also, technically, Brick Break, but no Drain Punch. So something to look into. Also, we do get the Bulk Up if we want to not go for speed, but just defensive boosting as well instead of the Dragon Dance. There's really no reason to not go Dragon Dance, so that's something. We have Focus Blast if we want to use that specially, but then that, like, it's low accuracy and stuff like that. We get the Rock Slide, but we don't get the Stone Edge, so we're losing damage right there. And yeah, we get Dragon Breath, Reversal, and Counter. So Reversal could be a thing, like if you're doing a really crazy, like, Focus Sash into Dragon Dance, but we're so bulky that Focus Sash isn't going to be super reliable, but it does mean we are tanky enough to get a lot of Dragon Dances for an insane amount of damage on that Reversal. And the point I was trying to get to in that future 7th generation games, be aware of Move Tutors. If Move Tutors comes in and Kommo-o gets Drain Punch, that is going to change everything about this Pokemon, and then maybe even skyrocket it into, like, super viability just off of, like, one move right there. Because our coverage, as you can see right here, it's like we run Earthquake, we run Sky Uppercut, we run the Dragon move. Done. So we get the Dragon Claw. And, like, that's really all we get out of the Kommo-o. So let's go hop on over to Pokemon Showdown and see what we can do with it. So Kommo-o is going to be very comparable to Dragonite, I feel. That it has that low-ish speed, but it sets up into a Dragon Dance for Insanity. However, Dragonite's coverage is just way better. Dragonite gets Fire Punch, Ice Punch with Tutor, Waterfall, Hurricane, Stone Edge. It works that special attacking because it has that 100 on special attack. So Hurricane becomes really powerful. Can set it up in Rain, has Thunder. So I mean, like, Thunder, Hurricane, Special Dragonite, and Rain is going to do more than Kommo-o can ever do with its special attack setup that it currently has. We have Waterfall for the coverage, and we just do other things that the Kommo-o cannot do with the Dragonite while rocking a higher attack stat. So what does Kommo-o have by comparison? Also, I did have Dragonite here. Just a lot more colors. Just a lot more colors. With the Kommo-o, it's like normal and statusy things, and then some okay attacks, but it's not really an insane amount. So that's where I feel it's all about the identity with Kommo-o, that it doesn't know its identity. So what we're going to do with it is just max out speed, max out attack, use this inherent bulk to survive some moves, and then you just want to +1 and try to kill everything. Weakness Policy is an option because we can survive some of those hits right there. And even the speed with the Kommo-o is kind of bad. Like 85 base speed with +1 means you are speed tying 135 base speed Pokemon. So the same thing applies for Scarf, and that's like not that fantastic. So for Dragonite to outspeed those, it would want to run Jolly, which would still sacrifice damage. But I mean, Jolly Nature Dragonite is going to get more speed and more damage. Let's go drop this down to level 50 just for the direct comparison. So 186 and 145. 178, 137. So Dragonite's getting more stats by just running the Jolly Nature, so it gets faster, it gets more damage, and then it has a little bit more freedom to do other things. Now Dragonite also has a multi-scale, but this is a Kommo-o guide, not a Dragonite guide. Just kind of showing you that we get okay amounts of damage, and then like I talked about, Dragon Dance, Sky Uppercut, Dragon Claw, Earthquake. Also, it is worth mentioning the Poison Jab, since Fairy-type Pokemon do give us a bit of a problem. It's kind of strange, because for the most part, we don't want to be in on Fairy-type Pokemon, but if we already have, like, an insane Dragon Dance setup, then we can use our Poison Jab Pokemon to take out the Fairies that would otherwise threaten us. So that's something to consider, and a lot of people will run this over the Earthquake. Earthquake does make things a little complicated with our fighting typing because Steel, Rock, well, we're hitting those with our fighting typing instead. But with the Earthquake, we do get a nice little bit of coverage. We have Poison type Pokemon, so it's kind of up to you how you want to take this one. And Poison Jab will add that Fairy killing that a lot of Kommo-o are looking for, but it won't be like the most maddening, insane damage ever. It's just going to cover up for the big weaknesses that we have for Fairy. And there's also a layer of like how technical you want to get with this, because if you go to a type coverage checker, you can see that fighting, dragon, and ground is going to be better coverage than the fighting, dragon, and poison. So more super effective hits, also just better overall base power on that Earthquake, but the poison is going to be super effective against what is super effective for us. And Pokemon just tends to be a game of, I wish I had the other move, you switch the move, I wish I had the first move. So it's pretty much preference, and there's an argument for both sides as to which one is going to work better. And then your choice, bulletproof or soundproof. Soundproof could be big, because like that pixelate hyper voice is an issue. Also any hyper voice, any kind of hyper voice, that is something that you want to be shutting down right there with the soundproof. So maybe right there, and then it's really how much damage can we get out, because a +1 110 attack Pokemon is not that great. So really we'd have to hope for 2 Dragon Dances before Kommo-o really gets viable. But then Dragonite, that's a big Pokemon for 1 or 2 Dragon Dances. The weakness policy is going to be touch and go depending on how powerful the super effective hit is. So what about special attacks? And also I was like, you can choice Scarf special. You can just kind of do whatever special, it doesn't matter. But then we're an 85 base speed Pokemon. So how's that supposed to work? And then even Clanging Scales, like, 100 special attack with a 110 base power move. That can be powerful, but we need a higher amount of speed with a Life Orb. With this, we're just kind of throwing it out there, hoping for the best. Focus Blast, it's stab, low accuracy. Flash Cannon's nice for the coverage. We at least get to hit pretty solid against Fairy-type Pokemon, because Fairy-types are such a threat. Then Draco Meteor, big damage, stuff like that. Technically leaves the door open if you want to do something like Draco Meteor into Mixed, similar to like what you would expect out of a Salamence. But even then, looking at the Salamence, it packs a 110 special attack, a 135 attack, and 100 on that base speed. And it's kind of still bulky enough to survive one hit for the setup, which is what Kommo-o is doing anyways. So the comparisons really start falling apart. Also, just kind of looking into some other things, Autotomize with Weakness Policy. That could be a way of running Kommo-o, that you take the hit, and with Autotomize, it does let you fully invest in hit points. So you max out hit points, you max out attack, and then you Autotomize, you take a super effective hit, Weakness Policy, now you're +2/+2. So you get your 2 turns of Dragon Dance in 1 turn instead, and then you go for the sweep right there. It is very dependent on the Weakness Policy. Other than that, you still have 2-hit KO potential, because you outspeed, hit, that's a KO, as if you were getting a +2 hit anyways. Also, Autotomize does work for the special set, so you do this as well with a Weakness Policy. That's an option. Scarf can work. I was thinking on something like this as well, even running the Fist Plate, because you need that damage. So maybe with Fist Plate, like Fist Plate, Sky Uppercut, +1 on the Dragon Dance, that could maybe find some solid neutral KOs that you're looking for, and it means you don't have to gamble on this +2 on Dragon Dance. I honestly don't see any other item for Kommo-o. Maybe Lum Berry. But other than that, like, our bulk just kind of makes it weird. We're too tanky for a Focus Sash, but not tanky enough to be, like, super reliable against tons of damage. So really all that's left is going over and checking out some damage calculations. So I'll just bring up, like, random Pokemon. Here's a Komala. How much damage do we do to a Komala with the special set? Because I really wanted to look into special, because Clanging Scales, that's a 110 base power move. That is like our bread and butter right there. Say if we're running Modest Scarf, we're getting that speed in there, we're outspeeding a lot of things. Well, that's still a 2-hit KO against somewhat fairly tanky Pokemon. Let's go and bring up the Oricorio. Oricorio, another like fairly tanky Pokemon. Like, that's still a 2-hit KO. So we have this high base power move, we have our signature move, and the best we get out of it is 2-hit KOs. We don't have any special attack boosting except for like the workup. That really complicates things when you're trying to run the Kommo-o. Like, yeah, I can't really justify anything unless you Baton Pass speed boost into it, and then you go for workup to boost your special attack by 1 instead. Calm Mind speed boosting, but you can put those stats into another Pokemon that could maybe get away with a bit more. And then Clanging Scales, like, we outspeed, we 2-hit KO, and we are pretty bulky, which is why I want to go and bring up the Komala. That Komala is a very respectable damage kind of Pokemon. It runs that Choice Band, it can 2-hit KO you in return. So it just shows that, yeah, we get 2-hit KO'd by strong Pokemon neutrally. What about the Garchomp levels of damage? Like, the Garchomp matchup is going to be weird anyways. Like, say we outspeed, Clanging Scales is a KO anyways. But, I mean, the amount of damage that we can do with the Earthquake, and if it's like Life Orb, Earthquake, Garchomp, those are 2-hit KO ranges. So any kind of boosting that we're looking like that. Let's see, Alakazam, it just outspeeds you and then blows you up with a Psychic. Like, these are super effective hits, so it is understandable. But I'm showing, like, if we're trying to proc Weakness Policy and a super effective hit comes out our way, we're gonna have a hard time. What about the Greninja? Maybe Greninja with the Ice Beam. Okay, so you can survive a timid Life Orb Ice Beam from a Greninja, but that's only with full hit point. Oh, I just realized this is full hit point investment. So that's Autotomize set. So the Autotomize set works, but if we're running for like Dragon Dance or we're running for speed, then yeah, that's going to definitely skew these things out of the water. So Greninja KOs us. Let's see the Weavile. Weavile, that's going to be Icicle Crash, and with that Life Orb, is it enough? Yeah, it KOs us. That means the Garchomp is certainly going to be a 2-hit KO. It's a 2-hit KO without the Life Orb. So what are those odds right there? 87% chance 2-hit KO. So yeah, we have a hard time setting up on the Kommo-o. I also want to go, alright, what about Kommo-o's damage in return? And this is why I want to go and show some other things. So, +1 with the Dragon Dance, we have enough to neutrally KO a Pokemon like Weavile. So, 70 on the hit point, 65 on the defense. And that's why I was saying, yo, the Fist Plate, we need to add on to that extra damage. And as you can see, Dragon Claw at the +1, that's enough to neutrally KO. So, I want to go and take a look at the Savali, because 95 hit points, 95 defense. That's going to be 3 tanky, 5 us, though. So, I don't really... No, like, Sky Uppercut, super effective hit, so it should be doing 200%. Let's just change it to something, like, just normal, like a Water type. So, Fist Plate, +1, off the Dragon Dance, using Sky Uppercut, we don't get it. So, I mean, we don't have the close combat. We don't have your fighting coverage that you would come to expect. But this also shows that if we were at +1 and then we're using Drain Punch, now we're getting insane amounts of health back, and that could be worth investing into. You know, maybe even Citrus Berry, that we could try to go for a +2 at some point. You know, you Dragon Dance, take a hit, you Citrus Berry, you Drain Punch, you Dragon Dance, and now you're one-shotting everything, and that could be pretty cool. With a Dragon Claw, that's not really doing it for us. So at +1, with the Fist Plate, 80-95, not finding it, 80-80. So on the low end of frail Pokemon, that's what we're going for right there. So it really shows that Kommo-o needs a +2. Now, if you're going for +2, then that's where you take out the speed investment, you go into hit point investment, and that's like the autotomize versus the weakness policy. Do you have hit point investment? Hope you get hit by a survivable super effective hit, something like that. And even showing like with the max hit point investment, it's still pretty touch and go if you are going to survive a super effective hit. So I guess this shows why we're not seeing too much Kommo-o, but like any Dragon Dance Pokemon, it hits 2 Dragon Dance, and then it wins. If you can get 2 Dragon Dance on a health invested Kommo-o, and then you're landing Earthquake, Sky Uppercuts, Dragon Claws, everything dies at that point. As for the Life Orb, you could run it. It pretty much pushes us from like 80-80 to 90-90 at the cost of 10% of our health on every attack while we're already taking a hit while trying to set up for the Dragon Dance. The choice is yours. If you want to take it, that's kind of it. So showing the play around Kommo-o, bring it in on a Pokemon that's trying to sit up. If they're going for some kind of setup, you know you can outpace it, you know you can out-survive it. You just become a devastating Dragon Dance Pokemon. But at the same time, there's a lot of other devastating Dragon Dance Pokemon, and I would argue that they do more successful things in a more efficient way than the Kommo-o. You do have to worry about 4 times super effective to Fairy. Now, to be fair to Kommo-o, that's like Salamence, Garchomp having 4 times to Ice. I don't know, is Fairy more common than Ice right now? It feels like there was a ton of new Fairy Pokemon introduced. There's a lot going on with Fairy right now with that support. Soundproof is busted though. We do have some special mixed options. I don't know, that's Kommo-o, guys. It's awkward. Its identity makes it hard to use, and if you really want to specialize in it, go for it. But that's really all I'm going to say. So if you guys enjoyed the video, hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.